I would like to welcome to the stage Wendy Schmidt. Wendy, come and join me. President, co-founder of the Schmidt Family Foundation and the Schmidt Ocean Institute. Wendy, as you know, is one of the great philanthropists in the ocean space.
Thank you.
Come and join me.
Thank you.
I'm delighted that you are here. You fund many organizations in the ocean space. You've done a tremendous amount of work here. I wanted to start, though, with the one that's always intrigued me, which is your research vessels, Falkor and Falkor 2. Tell me what they do, tell me what your goals are with them, and tell me what it's like being on them.
All right. Let me start by saying that I was inspired by Sylvia Earle to get into this work. Honestly, I met her in 2008, and her deepness. And my husband is interested in technology, as you know, and I'm interested in communications. And as my passion for the ocean grew, I learned to sail, I learned to dive. And we wanted to do something no one else was doing with a research vessel. So we commandeered a discarded German fisheries vessel and converted it into Falkor. That was the first ship. And the idea was, what's in short supply for scientists was ship time. So we thought, well, we'll offer a platform. We'll be that philanthropic platform for scientists around the world to come on board with their research, use our laboratories, use our equipment, and share their discoveries openly in real time. And that was quite revolutionary back in 2012. Scientists thought people would steal each other's work. They weren't that happy about it, but it's become quite normative now. And last year, we launched the second vessel, Falkor 2, TOO, and we've had more than 1,000 scientists in the last decade come on board. Research all across the world. We're in all 7 ocean basins in the next decade, and bring scientists from different regions on board, again, to share their work. And the most important thing to know about all of this is that every single time we take an expedition, we discover something we didn't know was there. We have a diving ROV that goes to 4,500 meters on board. It's called Sebastian. And you can watch along with Sebastian. You can take
Sebastian?
Sebastian.
My husband's called Sebastian.
But this is Sub-Bastion. Sub-Bastion.
Oh, Sub-Bastion.
Our whole theme is the never-ending story, because we think the ocean is the never-ending story. Anyway, this ROV goes down to 4,500 meters, and every single time there's a new discovery. For example, in the first transit of this ship across the Atlantic, in the mid-Atlantic ridge, we discovered life forms in hydrothermal vents, where you can often find, life thriving in boiling sulfuric chemistry, which we don't expect to see. But we found so much life in this area that had been slated for mining that it raises the question, what's really in the ocean, and what does life on Earth really look like? That's the fascinating question.
So how, we could spend this whole conversation talking about these vessels. Just one more on them. How do you decide where to go, and how do you decide which scientists to take?
So there's a whole process there. Where you go is really interesting. We decided in our strategic planning to visit all 7 ocean basins and to let everybody else know where we were going. Right before the pandemic, we convened a group of all of the philanthropically operated vessels. There are about 19 of them in the world, to talk about where are we all going, and let's share our information and our plans so we don't all circle the same areas all the time. That was really what was happening. And so now we're at the beginning of a collaboration where we can tell everybody this is where we'll be. Right? It can help with planning for scientists to know this ship is going to be in the Antarctic region next year. We can apply for, some time on the boat and bring our project on the boat. It helps all of us plan better. I should mention that these ships map the ocean floor everywhere they go, too. Wow. This has been in process for the last decade. And at this point, we have about 25% of the ocean floor mapped in high resolution, which isn't very much when you consider, right, it's covering 71% of the Earth's surface, so that's half of our planet we haven't really seen.
But you have, well, it's not on one level, it's not that much. On another level, it's quite impressive. Presumably, the pace you're going, you will eventually have mapped a large amount of the ocean.
There is a project the Nippon Foundation is sponsoring, right, to map the ocean floor by 2030. We're part of that collaboration. I hope we'll make it. You know, before now, the satellite imagery that we used to have that told us about our planet was very indistinct. And there's a great deal of distortion when you go through seawater. So now we're getting clear eyes. We're really getting to see what's there. And when you go on one of these live dives with Schmidt Ocean Institute, you can tune in on YouTube anytime, you are seeing things very often that no human eye has ever seen. I find that remarkable,
so
that I can sit in my house and do that. Shouldn't my idea about life on Earth change because I'm seeing this? That's our hope.
So you're basically creating an enormous amount of knowledge about the ocean, and you're making that available, and so your humanity's understanding is being increased by this. But that's not all you do with your philanthropy. You're also investing in seed funding, technological innovations that you think will make a difference. Can you talk a bit about what your philosophy is for those investments? What are you trying to do there? Do you have particular areas you focus on? How do you decide where you want to put your attention?
Well, this is interesting. You know, I hosted or I sponsored a couple of X Prizes back in the 2011, 2015 period of time, and you find out that innovation comes from everywhere. In the first Ocean Cleanup X Prize, there was a guy who was a tattoo artist in Las Vegas who sketched something on the back of a napkin. And he ended up being one of the finalists in that contest to clean up ocean oil spills. And the winner, of course, was able to do it 4 times faster than the average in the industry. So there was an innovation, kind of an inspiration for people to bring these things out of their garages, right? Somebody who had built something for that contest and never used it, I discovered at Mbari in Monterey Bay when we were testing this ROV I was describing, Sebastian. And this guy was really smart, and he had this whole thing, and it was sitting there. He didn't know what to do with it. He didn't understand how to market it. He didn't know what the next steps would be. And that's when Schmidt Marine Technology Partners was born, because I thought, we can fund these people. We can connect the dots between someone with a bright idea and the marketplace, and also knowing what the problems are that need mitigation in the ocean. We need to address overfishing, for example, and bycatch. There are technologies emerging that do that use lights and different kinds of nets and computers to keep heavy nets off the bottom of the ocean floor, to deter sharks, to reduce bycatch. All kinds of technologies to track where boats are fishing, to find out if they're in illegal places or not, to be able to see all of that stuff. That's where we invest.
And this is sort of early stage philanthropic investment, but with a view then that these will be commercializable and companies that will then go through the sort of traditional capital raising stage.
Absolutely. Everything has to be cost effective in the end. And our strategy is to be there early, to take the risks that others won't. Governments won't, businesses won't. They shouldn't. But philanthropy can, and we should. And so we exit when something becomes a darling of the market like sail drone. We exit. That was a very small investment in the beginning. I think it was $5,000. I met Richard.
5,000.
I think we met Richard Jenkins when we were building Falkor, and got kind of intrigued by his idea about these autonomous sailing vessels that could pick up data all over the world. And the $5,000 was for a prototype that they were building, that we towed out Narragansett Bay in Rhode Island using a little tender from my sailboat, sent it off into the Atlantic Ocean, and it didn't make it. But 3 years later, an independent sail drone was sailing from San Francisco to Hawaii and back. And a couple of years later, sail drones were going around Antarctica twice and going into the eye of a hurricane to collect all this wonderful data for meteorology, for oceanography, for climate scientists. That's our problem now. We have so much information. Falkor 2 operates 24/7. What do you do with all of that information? You need machine learning and AI. Here we are, it's here, and it's going to help us, I think, to solve some of these problems.
Are you already using AI,
Absolutely.
using machine learning to interpret this data?
Absolutely, you have to, because the machines can do this data analysis and pattern finding so much faster than any human could do. It would take your lifetime.
So two sets of questions. First, second will be about the future, but the first one right now, you mentioned sail drone. Give us an example of a couple of others of the investments that you've made where you thought, wow, this is really transformative.
Well, sail drone, of course, ended up with $90 million in venture capital. That was when we did our exit. But it was very important to stay involved all along because the technology could be used for oil and gas exploration, for example, and we decided it wouldn't be used for that, right? You have to steer the technology toward what you want it to do. I think my other favorite example would be which is a small investment in the beginning for a young man who wanted to use mycelium to make materials in a new way. And so he was making packaging materials to begin with. A replacement for styrofoam became a very popular thing. And as he's gone along, again, building out of our small investment, they have real investors now. They're making not only packaging materials, but they're making pleather for fabrics to use in clothing. And the latest product, I'm dying to try it, is bacon. They say
bacon,
it's pretty good.
As in food bacon?
Yeah. They say it's pretty good.
Made out of?
Mycelium.
Mycelium.
And Evan...
I think we should have it at the World Ocean Summit in a couple of years. What do you think?
Evan, the founder of the company, is now running the largest mycelium factory in the world in Vermont.
Wow. So those are, that's two very diverse examples. Philanthropy kickstarts, technology in the market then takes over. Going forward, you have a huge amount of data. We have the capability of using AI to interpret that data. What do you, when you're looking, and I'm sure as anybody from the tech world, you spend much of your time looking forward, what do you think in the next, 5 years? What are your aspirations for what Schmidt Foundation will be capable of funding? What areas do you think are most exciting? Where should this community be looking for the most tech-based solutions?
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to people last night, and I sort of tested this assumption. And it was kind of verified in the conversations. I said, I think it's all accelerated a great deal in the last 5 years. If I say to you, I've been doing this for 15 years, there are things you can do today that you didn't dream of 10 years ago, and they've become very normative. Let's just take the sensors, for example, right? To want to make a low-cost portable sensor 10 years ago was really on the frontier. Now we take that for granted. Of course you have sensors. The question is, where do you put them? Yeah. We sponsored the ocean race at the last race around the world, and because we were the sustainability partner of the ocean race, we got scientific measurement equipment on all of the sailboats as they went around the world, 35,000 miles, something like that, over 9 months. And they were able to do real-time sampling of the water everywhere they went. They were able to drop buoys, and these boats, of course, are going where no boat ever goes. They're absolutely in the most remote places, which is why I can tell you there are microplastics in the farthest reaches of the ocean, right, where no one's going to measure that. And this is the kind of information we just have to keep collecting. So I'm thinking that all of this data, as we collect it, as it's analyzed, is going to change how we think about life on Earth, how we think about the role of the ocean. It's not just that it feeds half of the population with their primary protein. It's not just the air we're breathing, right? It's not just the hydrological cycle. All the fresh water in the world is coming from the ocean, but it's the climate itself and the feedback loops. And through many, many efforts and many kinds of research, I think we are going to understand in the next 5 years, better than we do now, what those loops are. The second thing that I think we will be able to do in the next 5 years is get to this question about ocean mining. I was reading a report last week, the World Wildlife Foundation solicited from a group called Syntec here in Europe. And they were looking at the minerals that we think we need to mine if we're going to move to a net zero economy by 2050. And you know them, they're the copper and the manganese and the nickel, there's 7 of them. And they concluded that if we were able to use the waste from existing terrestrial mining, the tailings and so forth, if we were able seriously to recycle and recover what we have already mined, we could do a complete, full global build-out of this new green economy with a reduction of 58% in the demand for these new minerals.
And thereby not need
to mine the ocean at all.
Well,
that's the conclusion.
Everyone I'm talking to this morning, I'm going to send you to tomorrow's discussion. There will be a robust discussion on deep sea mining. But what is very, very clear is that better information and better understanding has been central. I think even in the time that I've been involved with these, the scale of information that we have relative to 9 years ago, the first time I shared this, is extraordinary. And much of what you're doing is a large part of that. So thank you very much. And thank you for joining me. The red light is flashing. Alas, we could talk for a long time.
Yes,
thank you so much.
Thank you.